Matthew. Chapter 12, verses 46 to 50. At that time, while Jesus was speaking to the people, behold, his mother and his brothers stood outside, asking to speak to him. But he replied to the man who told him, "Who is my mother and who are my brothers?" And stretching out his hand towards his disciples, he said, "Here are my mother and my brothers. For whoever does the will of my Father in heaven is my brother and sister and mother." The Gospel of the Lord. Dear friends in Christ Jesus, we have come to the conclusion of the book of Prophet Micah. The final lines of Micah would end this way: "In God we trust." A beautiful way to conclude this book, though it started in a very, very strong note, a kind of a warning note, Micah giving a peace of mind to the people, but finally you see how the whole text ends: "In God we trust." And again you see this book, this chapter 7, if you see the first few verses, and you will see there is a female being mentioned, and that will be revealed in verse 8. That female would be none other than Assyria itself. And when Assyria takes pride in its victory over Israel, God would say, "Don't take pride, because ultimately you will also have the same fate, because you have dealt with my own people." In spite of warning, in spite of even allowing people to go into exile in 722, still God has this unconditional love for his people. That's why there is a beautiful way of saying, you will go back to the time of old, like as you were in the days of old, as you came out of the land of Egypt, the times you spent in your promised land. A beautiful way of talking about our God, beautiful way of putting across what is going to happen in the future. Again, who is like a God? Who is a God like you, pardoning iniquity? This "who is a God like you" is a beautiful phrase, because the word Micah would mean "who is a God like you." That's a literal meaning for the word Micah, "who is a God like you." Imagine, that is a centrality of this book. The whole of this prophet Micah is to say, who is a God like you? Can you just find someone else, some other gods whom you are all trusting, be like our own God, who pardons our iniquity, unconditionally loves, in spite of correcting, in spite of giving a lot of punishments? But again, God can only embrace, God can only love, God can only give assurance and restore the fallen nation. A beautiful, beautiful way to look at our God. Again, it is said, as you go through the book, as you go through the book, you will see, you also come across a word called chiaroscuro, would mean two opposites existing together, like black and white. Or it is also used extensively in the film studies. You will see in German Expressionism, that is after the World War I, when they started making films, there were a lot of this contradictory element in the frame. The angles would be black and white, all opposites. So we also see this chiaroscuro element inside this text. That is, there is also element of punishment, there is also element of pardoning. But at the end of it, finally what wins is God's mercy. And again, the parallel from here is a gospel passage where it is very clearly said, "Who are my brothers? Who is my mother? The one who does the will of my Father is my mother, my brothers, my sister." It is to say, the connection here it is this: when it comes to fidelity to Yahweh, when it comes to faith, surely there will be a lot of division, there will be a lot of misunderstanding that can come from the families itself. So I have to give always Yahweh, God, first priority, to the point of even giving up on our own people, giving up on our kith and kin. Very many times we are so attached to our people that we always keep God as second priority. And because of our priority to God, first priority to God, there may be also a lot of criticism that is leveled against us, saying, why are you spending so much of money for the church? Why are you all the time spending time for prayer? So kind of accusation comes this way. But finally we have to give first priority to God. And it is in this context today, one of the words which we use very often, especially in today's context, is nepotism. Nepotism, now it has become very popular, but this has been there in existence for a very, very long time. At least in the church scenario, a lot of nepotism was in existence, and still it is in existence, where people try to promote their own nephews and nieces. If you are a member of a congregation in a big position, somehow you bring in all your people, and they will make sure that they have their occasion. That kind of a situation, which is actually nepotism. God is again against this nepotism. He says, you give me first priority, you are in. Don't give people, your own kith and kin, first priority using me. Which means you are sidelining me, and your whole of your center is around your kith and kin, your family and your blood relationship and things like that. A kind of very strong message. So the underlying lesson for all of us today from these two readings would be this. God is always merciful. When it comes to judgment and mercy, mercy will always take upper hand. Judgment is only a means or a tool to correct our behavior. That does not mean God is going to tolerate our evil intention, our evil mindedness, because for which we will be punished. There is no doubt about it. But His mercy is always bigger than the punishment, bigger than His judgment. And to have His mercy, to enjoy His love and affection in spite of all our weakness, what is more important is my priority should be God. First priority should be God. The rest of it all only takes second priority. So the ones who give God the first priority, we can be sure of God's love and mercy. And this is, to put it very simply, come what may, whatever opposition that can come from the families, because our focus is on God, our priority is on God. But once we have this focus very clear, come what may, you can say, we trust in God. And my trust in God will make all of us to utter again this beautiful phrase, who is a God like you?